Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And Fallout 4 is a fairly large game. How large, you may ask? Well, large enough for another one of these videos, that's for sure. As the game is filled with hundreds upon hundreds of locations, characters, and quests. Among such a wealth of content are a plethora of Easter eggs, hidden secrets, and references, elusively placed by Bethesda. So today, we're going to explore such a subject yet again, as we take a look at another 10 tiny details you may have missed in Fallout 4. Starting off, during the Minutemen questline, the player will be given control of The Castle, an impressive star fortress off of the Commonwealth's eastern shores, also known as Fort Independence in the real world. You will be asked to go deep within the fortress's tunnels to locate a hidden pre-war armory. During this journey, you'll happen upon the remains of the Minutemen's former leader, General McGann. He'll be lying dead alongside a few bottles of wine, and you can take his clothes if you want. Now, pay attention to these wine bottles. Their specific name, Amontillado, bottled by a P. Edgar. Additionally, inside a hole in the wall just in front of the dead general and his drinks is a chained up skeleton that seems to have been there for quite some time, and there's no real explanation as to why. Well, this whole scene is actually a reference by Bethesda to a short story called The Cask of Amontillado by famous writer and Boston native Edgar Allan Poe. The story tells the tale of an evil man luring another into his cellar, promising his soon-to-be victim a chance to taste a rare, unique wine called Amontillado. The victim agrees, however, is quickly betrayed. The killer ends up throwing his victim into a hidden room within a wall, chaining him up, and then filling it all with bricks, leaving the man to starve. It's a pretty chilling story, one that someone at Bethesda must have read. Next on our list, allow me to preface this one with the story of Longneck Lukowski's cannery. Built and operated many years before the Great War, Longneck Lukowski's meatpacking plant was quite successful in the pre-war era. However, even after nuclear annihilation, the factory itself was left relatively unscathed. And in the decades leading up to the events of Fallout 4, a man named Theodore Collins stumbled upon the building, and was able to repair a few Mr. Handys and other systems to bring the plant back to life. Collins then began working with local hunters, who would bring him meat to pack, which he would then sell to traders, and eventually distribute all across the Commonwealth. The problem here is that Theodore wasn't getting enough meat from his hunters to satisfy the demand, and he had to resort to packing irradiated mole rat meat in his cans in order to keep up. Eventually, mole rats weren't enough either, and demand was so high, in desperation, he turned to secretly using feral ghoul meat in his formulas. Of course, no one in the Commonwealth knows this little secret of his. Except perhaps you if you bark up the right trees. Well, funnily enough, there's a random encounter that actually addresses this. When wandering the wastes, it's possible to happen upon a campsite with a single settler nearby. He or she will warn you to stay away, stating that their stomach hurts and they feel a bit gassy after eating a few cans of Longneck Lukowski processed meat. Now, of course, again, this person doesn't know exactly what kind of meat is in that formula, and perhaps it's best if it stays that way. Coming in at number 3, introduced in Fallout 4's final DLC, the Disciples are one of a few vicious raider gangs held up in Nuka World, the happiest place in the Wasteland, so long as you're a part of one of those raider gangs. The Disciples are known to be especially cruel, with their only real rule being, don't get caught. Their specific headquarters is located in Nuka World's Fizz-Top Mountain, and it's gruesomely decorated with the corpses of many of the gang's not-so-lucky victims. But among these untraditional ornaments, the player can find something that, well, doesn't belong, even here. As on the roof of the technical building within Fizz-Top Mountain, which is rather difficult to get to, might I add, lies a campfire and teddy bear. But if you look closely, you'll also notice a miniature carbonite-frozen Han Solo nearby as well. But that's not all, as it gets even weirder. Because if you shoot the figure, it will actually bleed. It's pretty gross. Let's all just hope that Princess Leia's on her way. For a 4th spot, it seems as though we can never get enough random encounters in videos like these. However, not all of them are as blunt and gruesome as you might expect in such a wasteland. One such is actually pretty hilarious. When traveling along the Commonwealth's roads, the sole survivor may be lucky enough to stumble upon a handful of Assaultatron robots that are speaking rather incoherently. It looks like they're experiencing some sort of technical glitch. This possibility is pretty much confirmed once they've detected the player, as they'll all charge you, but instead of shouting normal combat dialogue like, "Prepare to die, human," they'll instead scream, quote, "What a pretty boy." Yes, that is the thing they scream at you when chasing you. This is a thing that happens. Make of it whatever you will. Halfway through at number 5, we're gonna set sail for Far Harbor, a gloomy, swampy, usually foggy, gigantic island off the coast of Maine. Now, surrounding Far Harbor are a variety of much smaller, less significant islands, and it's one of those that I want to look at and focus on today. This one lies off the eastern border of the map, and strangely enough, it's completely inaccessible without the use of console commands, as it's technically out of the playable world space's boundaries, so if you try and get there, you'll be stopped by an invisible wall. But thanks to the no-clip console command, we can get a pretty good look at this area, which we otherwise wouldn't be able to. And funnily enough, Bethesda's included a bit of a small Easter egg here, despite the fact that no one should be able to visit it, as on the island is a tent, and inside of it are the bones of a long-gone individual, cuddling a toy car and teddy bear. But just next to this person's remains are a few building blocks that cleverly spell out a not-so-advertiser-friendly message. Nice one, Bethesda. Before we're able to dive right into our 6th spot, we'll first have to go all the way back to Fallout 3, looking back upon one of the most memorable vaults in the capital Wasteland. Vault 108. Like most other vaults, 108 hosted an experiment, but this one was particularly memorable. You see, Vault 108 was experimenting with cloning people. Specifically, cloning a man named Gary. The intention was for the scientists within the vault to clone this Gary fellow a few times and see what would happen. However, something must have gone horribly wrong, as by the time the Lone Wanderer reaches 108, all that's left are dozens of very hostile clones of Gary, who must have taken over the entire facility and won't tolerate anyone not of their kind. Notably, these Gary clones' means of language have devolved to the point where the only word they know how to say is their own name, Gary, with the tone of the word conveying meaning. So for instance, if one of the Gary clones is scared, he'll say, "Gary!" But if they're really happy, they'll say, "Gary!" You get the idea. Needless to say, Vault 108 was a fan favorite, and Bethesda definitely remembers. As in Fallout 4, specifically inside the abandoned ruins of Vault 75, underneath Malden Middle School, within a kid's bedroom on the floor, can be found 4 building blocks, spelling out the word Gary. It looks like at least one of them is still out there somewhere. 7th, one of the game's more touching potential random encounters involves a Wastelander seemingly dying on a roadside. If approached, they'll announce they're the victim of severe radiation poisoning, and will beg the player for any rataway to save them. This encounter in and of itself actually mirrors a similar one from Fallout 3, where you can encounter a dehydrated Wastelander who would beg for water. However, Bethesda took it a step further with this one. Should you aid this dying individual and provide them with rataway, after you've left the area and returned, they'll be gone, making it seem as though they survived. However, if you denied them of their request and left them to die, whenever you return to the location, instead of finding a dying human, there will lie the corpse of a dead ghoul. Looks like they weren't lying after all. Next, did you know your Pip-Boy's local map will actually update and change depending on what you build in a settlement? As if you enable its local map within a settlement, it'll display structures built by the player. It's a small, subtle thing, but one that I appreciate regardless. Getting close to the end here at number 9, Bradburton is a town just northeast of Nuka World that was built in the 2060s before the bombs fell in order to house the theme park's workers. Nowadays, however, the only thing inhabiting this town are a bunch of very not-so-friendly feral ghouls. But aside from irradiated zombies, Bradburton also currently houses a bit of a strange scene. Upon entering the settlement from its south road, one of the homes on the left holds an altar inside, decorated with various stars, and in front of it is a Chinese officer's sword sticking out of some glowing embers on the floor. Approach the sword, and you'll get the option to, quote, kindle the fire, causing the flames to erupt and stimpaks to fall from the sky. This, of course, is a blatant nod to the Dark Souls franchise, where the player can kindle similarly looking bonfires to receive Estus flasks, which allow you to heal more often, sort of like the game's stimpaks. I just wish Fallout 4 could have also borrowed Dark Souls' RPG mechanics. And finally, last on our list, the Rio Mariana is a small dock that can be found just north of Quincy. It was the home to two twin brothers, Malcolm and Eugene, who arrived shortly after the bombs fell and had hoped to repair a boat to escape all the chaos. Alas, 'twas not to be, as the two brothers grew tired of one another, and eventually murdered each other to death in frustration. The brothers did, however, leave behind their Mr. Handy robots, which will be quite hostile once you arrive. But aside from very hostile mechanizations, the brothers also left behind something else. Inside the Mariana's bathroom are a couple of humorous notes left by the brothers to each other that have been undisturbed. And let's just say, these letters tell a bit of a humorous tale. As Eugene asks his brother Malcolm to at very least try to clean up whatever mess he leaves in the bathroom, and Malcolm simply isn't having it. But on that tone of rebellion, we are going to wrap up. Another 10 tiny details you may have missed in Fallout 4. Which of the ones on this list were your own personal favorites? And what Easter eggs, secrets, and hidden facts do you know of in Fallout 4 that others might not have? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Thanks for stopping by, everyone, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everybody.